So what's up? Today we're exposing PTSD Explosion. This is this guy's name on YouTube. And we're exposing him for his settler colonial, liberal Zionist, ruling class mentality. Right? And so here's the initial comment that sparked the bullshit he said. Basic advice. I said this is on a video called do not move to Alaska before watching this. I said basic advice. Move to Washington, Oregon, California, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, or Rhode Island instead of Alaska. And this ruling class kvetchinator, and I'll show you why he's a kvetchinator. He told me, you name some of the absolute worst places to live in the U.S., especially for the standards of us to live in Alaska law. And I responded, Alaska has no standards. And so this is the first instance of his settler colonial ideology. He responds, if no standards means I can actually own my home and land and live in close contact with untapped wilderness, then I refuse standards. So untapped wilderness, that's a settler colonial trope. Alaska has never had untapped wilderness. The Athabascan people have always lived in Alaska, literally since the time of Adam and Eve, right? Literally since Allah created the earth, the Athabascan people and the Inupiaq people and the Yupik and Sugpiaq and Unangan and Tlingit people have literally lived in Alaska since the time of Adam and Eve, since Allah created the earth. Right? Since Allah created the earth. Since Allah created human beings. Since Allah created human beings, the Athabascan people have lived in South Central Alaska and interior Alaska. So the untapped wilderness, that's a red flag because that sounds like the whole settler colonial trope. Own my own home and land. There is no Sharia financing in Alaska. I cannot own a house in Alaska. If you own a house in Alaska, you are participating in riba. Riba is haram. Read the Quran. Okay? And here's my response. I say, public transport, pedestrian infrastructure, great health care, strong Islamic values, world-class kickboxing, world-class strength and conditioning, and world-class mixed martial arts are good standards. And in America, California and Washington are the only places with anything that resembles those. Right now, the main good places in the world to live are Casablanca, Tangier, Rabat, Wahran, Algiers, and Tunis. World-class cities like Casablanca, Tunis, and Wahran make Anchorage look like Cooper Landing. In America, Oakland and San Francisco are some of the few good places. And now this is where he gets to be a little kvetchinator and gets to be a little oiveanator. You know what I mean? So he responds, I've lived all my life in a quote-unquote Western quote-unquote welfare state. And what it equates to is getting drained from taxes, owning basically nothing, living paycheck to paycheck. That sounds like ruling class capitalist propaganda. Now, I live paycheck to paycheck. I own basically nothing. But you don't see me kvetching about taxes. The whole thing, getting drained from taxes, kvetching about taxes. Oy vey, my taxes. I want to move to Alaska and be a settler colonialist and kvetch about taxes. That's what it sounds like. He sounds like a little kvetchinator, a little oiveanator, like a global shlomo, right? He sounds like a global shlomo, basically. Or at the least a Shabbos goy, right? we'll get to that, the Shabbos goy part. But he sounds like, oy vey, I don't want to pay taxes. I want to tax evade, and you know what I mean? Do offshore in the Cayman Islands. That's what it sounds like, right? He sounds like a global Shlomo. Dude, taxes is the reason why there's public transportation. Taxes is why, well, taxes is the reason why places like Tunis, Tunisia have public transportation. Taxes is the reason why places like Tunis, Tunisia have actually good pedestrian infrastructure. Taxes is why Tunis, Tunisia has gyms where you can train mixed martial arts, train kickboxing, and train strength and conditioning at a high level. That's what taxes gets you. Taxes is why places like Tunis, Tunisia have relatively good healthcare, relatively good infrastructure, relatively good public transit. In fact, Tunis has a metro paid for by taxpayer dollars, something that Anchorage doesn't have. Check it out. So this is 11 Rue de Belgique in Tunis. This is the Place de Barcelone metro station, and you can see the plaza right there, the Place de Barcelone, right? And you can see how walkable, Tunis is way more walkable than Anchorage, right? And also you have le métro légère de Tunis, which is the light rail system that Tunis has. And then you got Avenue de la Liberté in Tunis. Look how walkable, and it looks like a great place. The sidewalk here is more narrow. The sidewalk here is more wide. But it looks like a great place to live. Like, you got your little bodega with dried fruit. You got, I think it says Café Dahlaoui. Your little shops on the side. It's urban Tunis is, if you live in downtown Tunis, urban, or close to the city center, it's a great place to live. Now, even if you live in the suburbs, you can see there's more of a strode right here. This is in Taim Hiri in Carthage, which is a suburb of Tunis. It looks a bit more suburban, right? I wouldn't live out there. I'd live somewhere more like over here, right? And you can see there's residences, there's literal apartments on the second and third floor of the building, right? The first floor is all shops. This is a normal city, mixed use development. I'm a total urbanist, so I'm gonna say urbanist things. Like, you see, you have these little shops on the first floor, and then you have apartments on the second and third and fourth floor. This is a normal city. This is what a normal city in Africa looks like, right? This is a normal city looks like, right? The first floor is all shops, and the second, third, and fourth floors are apartments or condos. That's a normal city. Anchorage is not a normal city. Anchorage has residential areas. Anchorage has commercial areas. That's not a normal city. Tunis, downtown is close to the city center, like Avenue de la Liberté. That's a normal city. And even here, you can see Rue de Belgique. You have apartments on the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth floors. But on the first floor of the building, you have shops, right? You have shops on the first floor of the building. This is normal. You go anywhere in Africa, you go to North Africa, this is normal. You go to Western Asia, this is normal. You go to Southern Europe, this is normal, right? This is normal. This is how urban development should be, right? So the little kvetcher, the little oiveanator says, I've lived my life in a quote-unquote welfare state. And what it equates to is being drained from taxes. Oy vey, my taxes. I want to schlep a shekel. Owning basically nothing and living paycheck to paycheck. I don't care. I'll take untamed wilderness any day over some dysfunctional dystopia. That's a settler colonial myth. The myth that Alaska is untamed wilderness is a settler colonial myth. Because guess what? Since the time of Adam and Eve, since Allah created humans, the Athabascan people, Inupiaq people, and Yupik people, and Sugpiaq and Unangan peoples have lived in Alaska. Alaska has never really been untamed wilderness. There's always someone that's been living there, whether it be the Athabascan people, the Inupiaq people, the Sugpiaq people, or the Yupik people. There's always been someone living in Alaska. So that's a racist settler colonial dog whistle, untamed wilderness. Racist settler colonial dog whistle. Dysfunctional dystopia? Does this look dysfunctional to you? It looks actually quite organized. And you can see how there's beautiful Arabic writing. Arabic's the greatest language of all time, by the way. And it's why the Quran was revealed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Arabic, right? But you can see this looks like an organized city. This looks like a very well organized city. This looks like one of the best organized cities in the world. Look how awesome and organized it looks. Tunis looks like a city where I would like to live. I wouldn't live in the suburbs though. But even in the suburbs, you're building buildings that are mixed residential and commercial. Like that's what a city's supposed to be. It's supposed to have buildings that have shops on the first floor and then apartments and condos on the second and third floor. That's how cities are supposed to be. Single family homes, that's not supposed to be, son. That's not supposed to be. And so he says he doesn't care about Islam as he's not a Muslim. If you do move to Saudi Arabia or whatever. So second of all, that's kind of a dog whistle. Saudi's not the only country that's Muslim. Because Tunisia is Muslim, right? And if I make hijrah, there is a high probability I'm going to move to Tunisia. Also, I have cousins in Tunisia, right? Distant cousins in Tunisia. And my 21st great grandparents were from Tunisia. So there's a huge motivation for me to move into Tunisia, in Tunis. Especially because I can't move to Beirut, Lebanon right now because obviously the Zionist entity is committing genocide and war crimes there and trying to commit settler colonialism there. So what else does the Oiveyanator, Global Shlomo, say? So he says, I'll agree on Anchorage not being a good city, but if you're moving to Alaska, you're not going to move to a 500,000 inhabitants crime-ridden town. Oh boy. Yay, another dog whistle. Yes, there is a high crime rate in Anchorage. But you're playing on the settler colonial tropes. You're playing on the racist settler colonial tropes. You're playing on... And honestly, the reason why there's a lot of crime in Anchorage is because of poverty. Why is there a lot of poverty? That's because of capitalism. And capitalism must be smashed, right? The whole point of... the Oiveyanator, Kvetchinator says The whole point of living in Alaska is you're in touch with creation without stupid arbitrary impositions from those in power and are not constantly inundated by propaganda. Can defend yourself, can actually own a home and land without paying taxes on it even after you bought it. Man, someone call the IRS because this guy's a fucking tax evader. This guy sounds like a fucking tax evader. Oy vey, I don't want to pay taxes. I want to funnel the money to the Cayman Islands. And when I go to Florida and eat oranges and schlep some shekels, you know what I mean? That's what he sounds like. Oy vey, my taxes. He sounds like a tax evading, liberal Zionist, libertarian, global Shlomo. That's what he fucking sounds like. Who kvetches and says oy vey about paying taxes. That's what he sounds like, man. And honestly, and like I said earlier, there's no Sharia financing in Alaska. So if you get a loan for a home, then guess what? Then you have to pay off the loan. And the loan has riba. Loans in Alaska has riba. Right? The loans in Alaska have riba. So you're committing riba, right? And stupid arbitrary imposition from those in power, inundated by propaganda. Dude, most of Alaska is inundated by propaganda. Do you realize how many idiots up here watch Fox News? How many idiots up here watch One America News? Do you realize how many idiots up here are just inundated by capitalist, Zionist, Freemason, Schofieldist, Protestant propaganda? And do you realize how many idiots up here are inundated by Mormon propaganda, Zionist propaganda? That's the reason why people are leaving, because they don't want to deal with the riba, and they don't want to deal with the bad infrastructure, bad public transit, and Zionist, Schofieldist propaganda. And here's the thing, man. The reason why Anchorage has bad public transit and bad infrastructure is because all these losers in South Anchorage don't want to pay up. They don't want to pay their taxes. They're a bunch of oil money Mormons. They're a bunch of Shabbos Goy, oil money Zionist Mormons. And they like to kvetch, oy vey, my taxes. I don't want to pay taxes. They sound like. And then you go to Turnagain, it's the same goddamn thing. ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر سيئاتنا وتوفنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. I had to say that because of one of the things I said before I said things. That's why I'm saying that real quick, right? Also, the settler colonial tropes. Yeah, those are not good. So he says, also you mentioned your religious values and pair them with San Francisco. Are you aware that that town is a cesspool of degenerates? Certain areas are. Like the Castro's a degenerate place. But when you got places like Eureka Valley and Stonestown and Daly City, which have large Muslim communities, those are the places that I'm talking about in San Francisco. Also, those other towns you mentioned are third world slums. So that's racist, right? Calling places in North Africa third world slums. This is North Africa. This is Tunis, North Africa. Does this look like a slum to you? It has better public transportation than Anchorage. It looks more developed and a lot cleaner than Anchorage. Right? It looks way cleaner than Anchorage and way more developed in terms of pedestrian infrastructure and public transportation than Anchorage. Does this look like a third world slum to you? In fact, it looks way more developed, way cleaner, and has better public transportation than Anchorage, right? And it has better values than Anchorage. Does this look like a third world slum? It looks way better than Anchorage, even though it has a Strode. It looks way more developed than Anchorage. No, settler colonies. Settler colonies are third world slums. Alaska is a third world slum. PTSD explosion is a racist. Calling North African cities like Tunis a third world slum when Tunis has a better public transportation system than most American cities, better pedestrian infrastructure than most American cities, better values, better lifestyle than most American cities. So to call Tunis a third world slum, that's racist. That is like, and then the whole trope about untamed wilderness. So here's the thing, man. Untamed wilderness. So since Allah, people have been in Alaska since Allah created the earth. You ever heard of the Athabascan people, the Yupik people, the Inupiaq people? You ever heard of the Sugpiaq people? You ever heard of the Unangan people? Some of the Tlingit people, some of the Eyak people. Again, Southeast Alaska is just an extension of British Columbia. You ever heard of them? Because Alaska has never been untamed wilderness. There's always been people living there. Untamed wilderness is a racist trope. That is a racist dog whistle. Taxes, getting drained from taxes, that's a Zionist, capitalist, global shlomo dog whistle. PTSD explosions are racist. Calling Tunis a third world slum, that's just blatantly racist. That's blatantly racist. Right? That's fucking racist. It's like there's no excuses. Tunis has better public transit than most American cities. And Tunis is a place, inshallah, where I will live someday because of their great public transit. So there you go. Oy vey, the taxes. But yeah, this guy's a racist, settler colonial, global shlomo, and actually owning stuff. What, owning capital? So you're saying you're a capitalist in addition to being a settler colonialist and a money grubbing, tax evading global shlomo? Is that what you're saying? Because that's not cool. And then talking crap about North Africa, that's not cool either. It's a racist dog whistle. So there you go. This guy, PTSD's explosion, is a tax evading, racist, liberal Zionist, Islamophobic, global shlomo, and that's a fact.